all these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get a
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
convinced
full
to
macro
enter a long trade.
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well this Sunday. Going to do a video a little bit earlier than normal, and maybe we'll get a pump out of it. There's a joke going around that these videos are causing pumps because the past few weeks there's been a very strange similarity between when I post and within an hour the bull's showing up, but I certainly don't think there's anything behind it, just fun to play around with. Let's talk about curtains. People want to talk about curtains every video these days. No, I am not going to install curtains in a fully furnished short-term rental. No, I don't care in the slightest about the aesthetics of my curtains. They are for functionality purposes so that people who are not native English speakers can see my mouth speak, and if there's excessive light coming from the background, the image is no good. So you guys worry about your curtains, I'll worry about my curtains, and everybody will be happy. I appreciate your concern. So, looking at Bitcoin on the weekly time frame, we're going to look at Bitcoin, ETH, LTC, BNB, ZRX, NEO, EOS, ADA. So the weekly candlestick's looking good. We're going to close today in about 9 hours or so, and we're seeing some solid confirmation of the bullish reversal candlestick. So there's a little bit of solid follow through. We saw a nice little pump yesterday, but it's not enough for me to be very confident just yet. So it definitely keeps the bulls comfortable, no doubt about that. But in terms of, like I said in a recent Twitter post, bulls are comfortable, but they're not sitting pretty. And what I mean by that is we need to get over this resistance level, 68.29, 68.17, 67.97, and now 68.43. So yes, we broke to the highest price on Bitcoin that we have seen since back on June 12th, so almost a month, and the highest price of Bitcoin. But it was just a short-term spike, and we did not hold that level, so it is still resistance. We can see the daily moving averages are getting closer to a bull cross. Last time I got the bull cross was on the April move that saw 4 months of green, and we are looking for this resistance to break either today or tomorrow. So on the 4-hour time frame, we had the potential bearish reversal head and shoulders pattern. The bulls certainly negated that in a big way. Big spike out of nowhere, and now healthy consolidation. So the low of consolidation at this point is 67.11 at a double bottom. That's our low. Bulls ideally want to hold that level. If we can hold 67.11 this morning, the odds of seeing continuation today will be pretty high. If we lose that level, then we'll continue to see healthy consolidation. The exponential moving average supports are catching up. We're testing the hourly exponential moving average supports right now, so we're also watching that level, and it is still holding at this point. We did have a little bull spike. Again, this bull spike happens every morning now, the past couple mornings I should say, right after 8 a.m. Eastern. So this morning it was 8:10 a.m. Eastern, a big bull spike, and then the bears were ready for it, knocked the price right back down after. And if we go back to what happened yesterday morning, it was the exact same thing. So yesterday morning, here it is, we had that spike up at 8:15 a.m. Eastern, and then the bears were ready for it and knocked it right back down. So the big pump yesterday happened here, and we got the follow-through that the bulls were looking for. So we had the initial pump, and it lasted more than just one 5-minute candlestick. The whole bull move lasted about 30, 45 minutes or so, and we've been consolidating in a healthy manner ever since. So that's what I mean by bulls comfortable. They definitely have a lot more wiggle room now before we lose the 4-hour higher low pattern. Stop loss level I was using before was 64.50, and I'm now going to use a stop loss of 65.12. And I was talking about how I have a partial position, so I don't have to get a position all at once on a bull break. And I did enter on some consolidation at 67.21 and 67. A couple orders, I believe it was 67.31, 67.21. So it did add a little bit to my position now that we got this bull move to keep the bulls in control. And we're going to be looking for a break, because if we get this break of this multiple tops at 6,800, then in my opinion, we're going to go over 7,000. And that's just because of the clear resistance level that level holds and the amount of short covering that would likely occur if we get that break, along with bulls buying that break as well. So there's definitely enough bullish action for the bulls to get excited for the potential of this break to come to start this next week and give us this bull cross of the 12-period exponential through the 26-period to the upside. So that's what we're watching on. And again, as long as we keep a 4-hour higher low compared to 65.12, bulls have nothing to worry about in the short term. They're just patiently waiting. It's essentially a big bull move. Bulls are looking to catch their breath, take a little bit of a breather, cool off overbought RSI conditions, and then look for continuation going forward. ETH, so pointed out in the video yesterday that Bitcoin and ETH were positioned the best for continuation on the daily time frame because they were closest to the highs of the bounce, and Litecoin and BCH were laggards. That doesn't mean that Litecoin and BCH can't see solid gains with Bitcoin, but it just means for the positioning on the longer term time frames that Bitcoin and Ethereum are much stronger. And Ethereum took the lead yesterday, and we'll see that in just a moment on the shorter term time frames. But again, bullish reversal candlestick on the weekly being confirmed. The daily time frame broke to a higher high, so that's very notable. The break of 486.76, we went all the way up to 492.15. So that is a clear bull break, and we now have a daily higher low, the low of this consolidation. Need to make sure your magnets are on. So the daily higher low of consolidation is now down at 451, that double bottom, and now we have a higher high. So the next resistance level that we're looking up at, 547.40 after 500 psychological. So there's nice space here for the bulls to see continuation, especially if Bitcoin gets that clear break of 6,800, and we see the shorter term time frames. There's the 4-hour chart. We're consolidating upward, whereas Bitcoin is consolidating down. So Ethereum has been gaining strength on Bitcoin over the last 16 hours or so. And you can just watch, look at the 5-minute time frame on that bull move from yesterday. And we got the initial surge, and right here is when Bitcoin started consolidating. And you see Ethereum just kept running with it. So, and we look at the comparison, ETH BTC chart, we're going to see that it's definitely favoring the bulls. There's the 4-hour time frame, a lot of follow through here. We had the initial bull move, and now it's just only continuing to gain in strength. So Ethereum right now is the leader on this move out of these major names, in my opinion. Bitcoin is number 2, and then BCH and Litecoin, while they did see solid moves yesterday, still a long way to go on the daily charts to be heading to higher highs yet. So on Ethereum, the low of the 4-hour consolidation at this point is really, we can look at the 15-minute time frame for clear support levels. You can see we're just stair-stepping higher. So I'm looking at support of 484.24, 483.55, and as long as the bulls have the 15-minute higher low pattern, they are very much fully in control. And even if that's lost, the low of consolidation, 479.31, is an ideal level for the bulls to maintain. And you can see the 4-hour chart, just all bulls. Exponential moving average support's holding. The hourly chart, exponential is holding here as well. So Ethereum bulls are looking good. And if we get that break of 6,800 on Bitcoin, we're going to be looking for Ethereum to get up towards 500 and potentially break that level. So congrats to the Ethereum bulls as well, and going to be watching close for the strength. Who's stronger, Bitcoin or Ethereum? Litecoin on the weekly. So again, upper wick, not as strong as these other names. The daily chart, look at where we are at compared to the high of the bounce. So both Bitcoin and Ethereum broke the high of the bounce, which would be like Litecoin breaking $90. Yet here we are over 6% below that level. So again, it's very clear. I don't care. I mean, yes, it's worth noting maybe the 5-minute bounces on that bull move yesterday had a more significant move in the short term. But if I'm looking at the daily chart, and if I'm looking at longer term patterns or swing trades or anything like that, it's very clear that these are the laggards and they are a ways behind the strength of Bitcoin and Ethereum. So we have a bullish reversal candlestick on the daily time frame for Litecoin, not being confirmed at this point. 79.42 is our higher low on the daily. And because of the magnitude of the pullback, the potential of an equilibrium and a lower high and a tightening range, as opposed to just continuation like these other bulls have seen, is more likely. So anything under $90 is just a lower high staying in a daily tightening equilibrium range, which is not the case for Bitcoin and Ethereum. 4-hour time frame for Litecoin, higher low trying to hold at 83.35, the low of consolidation at this point, and trying to see a bull cross of the exponential moving average that happened in the other names long ago. Still battling to hold the exponential hourly support. So that's what I'm watching this morning on all these names. Can they hold the hourly exponential support and head back towards the high of the bull move from yesterday? BNB USDT certainly looking different. Still holding these exponentials. So trying to close above this line, which has been holding at this point since back in March. So 4 months of this pattern holding. You can see the bulls just barely over it right now. The daily time frame, bullish reversal candlestick, not getting much follow through. So it's very clear. We've been setting lower highs and lower lows on this daily time frame now for Binance for the last month. So in order to change that, we have to break the lower high pattern. And right now I'm looking at resistance of 1430, followed by 1481, and then we're looking up at 1515. So some clear resistance levels to break the lower highs on the daily, and the bulls are trying to form a higher low compared to 1314. Anything above 1314 is a higher low, and the bulls are going to try and break that resistance. Daily inside bar, pretty much a sure thing today. Unless we see a bull break out of nowhere, we are going to very likely hold the low of yesterday. So we'll have an inside daily bar to be watching into tomorrow. This is not a situation where the bulls are comfortable. The bulls are more comfortable on Bitcoin in the short term, just looking at, the 4-hour time frame and the daily chart, than we are here on BNB. Because right now, BNB, the bulls have their backs against the wall, and they're just trying to hold this trend. If they can break the lower high pattern, that puts them right back in control and makes us comfortable with the weekly time frame. But if we do drop down to another lower low and break 1314, then this weekly chart, like I said, is going to be potentially losing its uptrend. And we're still holding on right now. Again, don't want to give the impression that the bulls are not fine, because they are still fine at this point. It's just a scenario where the momentum is with the bears, whereas the Bitcoin bulls have had momentum for the last week or two. So a little bit of a difference there. Perhaps there's some inverse correlation developing between the two. Going to keep an eye on that. It's not very specific at this point in terms of, each candlestick being different from each other. But just in terms of Binance being able to hold bullish on the weekly time frame for so long while Bitcoin was weak, and now the Bitcoin bulls are showing some strength, and this is the first time we've seen some weakness in the Binance daily chart in quite a few weeks. So just something to keep an eye on. And again, you do want to have a stop loss level if you are trying to play Binance. And if you're trying to make a bullish entry into Binance, have stop loss levels as well, just in case this momentum does keep shifting and it's time for more significant weekly consolidation than we've seen in the last few months. ZRX USD, nice bounce on the weekly time frame. Increasing bull volume is a great sign for the bullish reversal confirmation candlestick. That's what the bulls always want to see, more volume on continuation. The daily time frame, healthy consolidation. We had a little low of support established at 855, and then continuation, and then another little higher low here at 908, and the bulls are trying to break this little double top, 105 and 105. So clear double top, clear little higher low pattern, daily inside bar likely to form, 4-hour time frame, a little bit choppy here. So double top's very clear. 4-hour chart's a bit choppy. I would stick to the daily chart for that clear level of 9088 that the bulls want to maintain, as we're looking for these exponential moving averages on the verge of this bull cross. And again, we look historically, what happened after the last bull cross? It led to multiple weeks of very strong upside. So it doesn't mean it's a sure thing to happen again, but it just means something to keep an eye out for. Let's see if the bulls can rally into the 120s, 140s, and keep holding this exponential support once we do get this bull cross. So another inside bar to be watching, similar to Binance, and the daily bounce, some nice follow through, and looking for that continuation into next week. NEO USDT. So same thing, increasing bull volume, bullish reversal doji confirmed on the weekly. Daily chart, higher low, very clearly established, but it looks like an equilibrium might be forming. Support is 36.20, and our top of the bull move is 43.24, and here we are potentially setting a lower high with an upper wick. So we zoom into the 4-hour time frame and say, does it look like an equilibrium? And it does look like a potential equilibrium is forming. High of the bounce, low of consolidation, lower high, which is at 41.20, and the bulls will look to form a higher low compared to 36.23. And as long as there's not increasing bear volume, we will anticipate a higher low to form. So a nice tightening range to be watching on the 4-hour chart for NEO. A little bit different compared to the other setups that we've seen on these previous charts. And we'll see if this declining bear volume holds, which will make us confident a higher low is coming and a continued tightening 4-hour range. So definitely worth watching NEO. It is one of the stronger names as well, with the strength that we saw initially from the bounce. Still haven't gotten this cross of the exponential moving averages. We're looking for that as well. Last time we got that cross, not as much upside as ZRX just saw that we looked at, but we did get some nice follow through for at least a few weeks after that bull cross. So still waiting for that, and we're going to have to see a 4-hour equilibrium bull break to get that bull break to follow through on the 12 and 26 period exponential moving average on the daily time frame. EOS USDT. Not a whole lot of history here, but I'm just concerned with resistance at this point. And we have the bullish reversal doji trying to be confirmed, but there is an upper wick of profit taking. So the size of the pullback increases the odds that we see an equilibrium rather than continuation. So support right now is 829. Resistance is 940. That's our range. And if we form a lower high, we're going to look for the 4-hour chart to just give us a continued tightening range. And right now, the bulls are trying to change the 4-hour trend. It was a little lower high, lower low pattern. We formed a higher low. We broke the lower highs. So the bulls need to see continuation back towards resistance on this daily time frame. But again, it's in the same standpoint as Litecoin and BCH, where we have a lot of work to do to get back to the high of this bounce compared to where Bitcoin and Ethereum are positioned with their high of the bounce. And a bullish reversal candlestick from yesterday not being confirmed as well. So a little bit more work to do for these bulls. Clear base of support on the daily is a must-hold level going forward. If we break this low of consolidation, it is very notable, and it will be a red flag for the bulls, but still holding on at this point and need to see that 4-hour time frame establish another higher low and look for continuation back up into the low $9 range. ADA USDT, also not a ton of price history, but again, we're only concerned with resistance as we look for the bounce attempt, and we have plenty of short-term supports to be watching. So not a great follow-through, upper wick, a lot of profit taking. Daily chart consolidated down to 13.7, and the top of the bull move is up at 16.2. And again, we're not close to breaking to a higher high yet, as so many other individual names have done. That being said, a lot of these instances where we're not breaking to higher highs, it's because we saw an initial bounce that was stronger. So a lot of times you'll see laggards. And what I mean by that is what we have is, the initial bull move will happen, and the stronger names will then consolidate longer than the weaker names who are playing catch up. And so we saw that to a degree on the shorter term time frames yesterday, where BCH on the 5-minute time frame saw a bigger percentage move than perhaps Bitcoin did. But if you zoom out, it still has a long way of catching up to do. So it's just playing catch up. Whereas right now, names like ADA USDT are playing slowdown, where the other names are allowed to catch up. So not sure if that made sense at all, what I just said, but oftentimes you see the stronger names run first and then consolidate, and the weaker names play catch up. So it is worth watching for potential laggard strategies in that regard. But again, my strategy to keep things simple rather than scouting around and trying to see who's strongest and who's ready for the next move, that's a ton of work. I would rather just take the strongest names and continue to play them bullish, and take the weakest names and continue to play them bearish. That's what I do in my trading strategy all over any market. That's the simple rule of thumb way to do it. And there are definitely instances where I change that strategy, but that's my rule of thumb. Whenever I'm initiating positions, I'm looking for the strongest names bullish and the weakest names bearish. There are instances where I will play laggards. Again, when Litecoin was extremely oversold, LTC, BTC, daily chart, RSI was at 15 or something like that. That's when I'm going to play the laggard plays. But unless it's that clear of a setup staring me in the face, I'm going to continue to go with strength when I want bulls or weakness when I want bears. So that's where we stand on these names as we head into today. I have a whole day of trading to go before the close of today, which normally isn't the case with these videos because I do normally put them out later. But it's all about the hourly exponential supports today. Hold those levels. Bulls maintain full control. The bull move yesterday happened at 5 p.m. Make that 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll keep an eye out around that time because, again, there are time patterns to be had. It was 9 a.m. for a couple days. Now it's 8 a.m. for a couple days. And one thing is for sure, the bulls are sticking around. And when we would see, I pointed out in the other couple videos, when we would see the bears show up, the bulls are there to buy that dip and counteract some of that bearish action. So I am comfortable in my bullish position. I call it an anti-FOMO position. So because I was in Bitcoin 25% before that spike yesterday, I wasn't trying to rush in and, add to it on the way up. And that kept me from making any FOMO decisions. So rather than do that, I entered on healthy consolidation. I added to my position, and now I'm probably at about a 50% position and patiently waiting to see if we can get this clear bull break over 6,800. So I'm viewing this as a longer term trade, a swing trade. Longer term for me is a couple days. But that doesn't mean I now have 50% cash that I can play with for short-term plays where if, say we do see another bull spike and I'm sitting at my computer, I could go all in with a market order and then just flip it, 5 minutes later and lock in some short-term profit while my longer-term position just sits there. And I'm not exiting that longer-term position as long as the 4-hour uptrend is still intact. So that's where we stand overall. I appreciate you tuning in. Let's now go on to some adventure time. Also got to give a shout out to a buddy of mine. As I've said before, we don't do advertisements, but I will give a shout out to my friends who are doing things that they are passionate about in life and trying to make income doing so. So this is my buddy Miles. He's probably the best guitarist I've ever met personally. And just watching him, he plays a flamenco style, which is just mind-blowing with how fast his fingers are moving. But he's got a new thing he's trying to do, and I was encouraging him. I lived with him for a while on the place we're going to go into on Adventure Time next, but I encouraged him to make some content, some video content and things like that, and he's certainly going out and doing it. So if you want to check out the link, I'll put in the description here. If you're a guitar player, this is more intermediate guitar playing. He's going to teach you how to use 2-scale patterns to find any major or minor key for soloing. So a little bit more advanced, certainly not beginners, but you just enter your email and he will send a 12-minute little course on how he does his solos and things like that. He's been teaching for, a couple decades at this point. So check that out if you're a guitar player. Let's see. Now we are on to Asheville, North Carolina. So left California with my tail between my legs after the breakup. Traveled from Florida to the Northeast and then settled in on North Carolina. My game plan here was, what am I going to do with my life now? And I'm trading. But at this point, trading for me was, yeah, it's great. I can make income and I'm comfortable, but it didn't do it for me in terms of any intrinsic value. I didn't feel like I was adding value to society in any way, shape, or form. And it's just, I had this feeling, what am I doing with my life? I'm clicking buttons to make numbers appear in my bank account. So what? So I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep traveling. So I planned to go to Asheville to wait out the winter, January, February, March, and then start westward and head to the Northwest. And I had a whole road trip planned, all the stops, all the hikes, the camping, the national parks, the hot springs. And I got to this place and it just was a magnet where I couldn't leave. I was planning on staying for 3 months and it ended up being 3 years. So this is a house that I moved into. The second house that I moved into, I was at another place for a few months. And this was just a friend of a friend who was setting up this, community house and starting a garden. And I said, all right, well, I got experience with that. And he had pigs. I heard he had 2 pigs. I wanted to live with some pigs. So I said, hey, can I come, camp out for a couple weeks? I'm going on a road trip and looking to just help out and do some work and be on my way. And so obviously that 2 weeks turned into 3 years, and I had never lived with anybody longer aside from my family. Then I ended up living with him here. And it was a community house. So at some points we had 9 people living there. At some points we had 3 people living there. But just an incredible experience of community. And I'll go into that for the next couple of videos. But this video will just be year number 1, which was all focused on building a farm. So I got there, they were building a garden, and I said, all right, if we're going to do this, let's do it. So we ended up turning the entire yard, 4 acres, which was just grass, and we turned it into a small-scale farm. And we were planting, edible food gardens and perennials and raspberries and honeyberries and things I've never even heard of, blueberries and all these good things. We built a chicken coop. Let's go through these pictures here. These are the pigs that I came for, brother and sister, Boomer and Yeti. And they were great. They had a lot of fun, and I liked playing with them, spraying them with the hose, and they would run around. I'll add some videos again. Most of the videos of the farm I've shown previously, but that was 2 years ago or a year ago at this point. So I'll do some videos again once Adventure Time is done with the piggies and the hose and all that. Had a lot of fun with them. We would go and get them. We had a organic juice spot down the road, and we would go and get their scraps and just give these guys. They were hooked up with some great food every day, and it was free just to get that. And there's my experience with sheep from the farm in Maine. Certainly had some adventures with them as well. But we just got some goats and we just started doing it. And we got an excavator, and we were digging double beds and amending soil and just getting ready to grow a bunch of food. And it was just a big experiment. And the one thing I loved about it is my experience with farming was, high stress, first year startup farm, young couple, dependent on this income to live. So it was very high stress and it was a ton of work. Whereas we got here, and this is a house of entrepreneurs. The guy who started it is an entrepreneur. He got me started with TCG and really was an encouraging factor there with the TheChartGuys. I'll go over into that story aspect of things a little bit later tomorrow. But it was this kind of, we had income. I had trading income. He had his business ventures income. So what we were doing was for pleasure. We weren't trying to sell anything. It didn't matter if our kale had, little holes in it from things eating it, because we were going to eat the kale anyways. So it's a whole different world, and that opened up things to me, and that made me realize I don't ever want to be dependent on money from farming. It's way too hard and way too high stress. I want to do it for pleasure, and I want to do it to just grow food and give away to people. So that's what we did, and that's what our mindset was: grow as much food as we can, and then trade with it. There was a cupcake We called them the muffin ladies, but they made cupcakes down the road at a little spot. We would trade them eggs and they'd give us muffins and cupcakes, and just a barter system. There was a bakery in town where we would trade eggs for, loaves of bread, and we would just give away food to people and have potlucks and things like that. So we built a chicken coop. Nice. I would almost wanted to live in that, but ended up having about 30, 40 birds in there. There's the baby birds. They certainly grew up fast, and we ended up having multiple generations where, they would disappear into the bushes and show up with a bunch of chicks following them around. And, I got to know the pecking order of things and who was with which rooster, and which rooster was number one and number two, and whose, offspring were this chick and this rooster. It was really cool to just watch the society of chickens emerge, and the social structure is very interesting. When we would introduce new birds, if we got new birds, it was very cool to just watch how they worked themselves out and establish that pecking order. So here's one of the gardens where we just dug a bunch of beds, and double digging beds, we would dig down 2 feet and bury a bunch of logs and decaying plant matter to get the microbiology in the soil going. And then we would cover everything so the sun didn't bake away and kill all that microorganism activity. And it's really like your gut, your gut with probiotics that you try and keep healthy and add probiotics to. The soil's the same way. There's all these microorganisms like your beneficial gut bacteria doing work to help these plants absorb nutrients. And so you want to keep that, active. And so obviously people that are spraying with things, or people that have a wide open field that just bakes in the sun, they don't have that healthy microbiotic microbacteria activity going on. And so that's something that we wanted to foster, and it definitely had benefits. But what we did was turn this, again, this 4-acre yard that was just a mowed, manicured lawn, and we turned it into this ecosystem. And by planting all these flowers and these pollinators, so much life started to show up. This is just a spider, but I mean, spiders, birds, animals. It was just wild to watch the explosion when you let nature happen. All the beneficial relationships that all these animals have with each other. Here's a bunch of squash that we planted. We ended up digging these big mounds, and we would buy these rotting bales of hay, these big, however many 100-pound hay bales that would just, that left out, and the farmer doesn't want it anymore. It's rotting. So we would get that, and we would cover our beds with all that organic decaying material. And so it would keep the moisture in the soil. It would keep that microbiotic activity going, and it would keep the soil nice and healthy. And there were so many worms in this soil because of this, blanket essentially keeping everything in. And these squash ended up getting huge, and we grew beans here. These are pole beans. And again, just way more than we needed. And it was nice to be able to give away all these things. This is one of the first harvests. And it eventually got to the point where we were getting this literally every single day for, a month or two in a row. And so we had way more squash than we knew what to do with. One story is we took these squash into the city with a grill, and we were saying, hey, let's just grill out some homegrown organic squash and give it away to people on the street. So we went to a more beat up part of town and neighborhood and started grilling squash. And the only people that came up were homeless people and drug addicts, which is fine. But it was very apparent that, on the corner across the street from us, they were selling drugs. So we found ourselves slinging organic squash across the street from where they were slinging who knows what kind of drug. And that was definitely a very interesting experience to have. We had good intentions, and some people ate some squash, so I guess it all worked out. But it's just nice to have more than you need, and had so many cucumbers. Every single year was a different year where, year one was the year of the cucumber, where cucumbers did really well. And then year two, the squash did really well. And then year three, potatoes did really well. So it was really cool to watch from year to year what changed and the observations in the different conditions, whether we're getting less rain or, whatever it is. So we made a ton of pickles, and I love pickles, but we literally had, dozens and dozens of mason jars full of pickles. And I ended up making some sexy time pickles. I like being naked. Must be consumed in the nude. And this guy I hadn't met yet, and he came over for a potluck or something. And next thing I know, there's a naked guy in the kitchen eating pickles. So I knew that we'd be friends. Kittens and birds and all kinds of fun stuff. Every day, my job was just wake up every day, feed the animals, as the sun's rising, And then I would just work for 6 to 8 hours a day only doing farm stuff, making beds, building chicken coop, helping out with whatever other projects were going on, digging these raised beds. And very, very motivating when, again, it's your project. You're winging it. It doesn't matter if you're making money. You're just trying to grow as much food as possible. It's just a big, giant experiment with no negative outcomes. And that was a lot of fun. This is one of our pepper harvests. We went all out. There was definitely a year of the pepper with habaneros and jalapenos, and we did ghost peppers and all kinds of fun stuff there. So essentially, year number 1 was all farming. Year number 2 started the Chart Guys. Had a lot of entrepreneurial. I cannot stress enough how the people that you surround yourself with have such an impact on your life. And if you're surrounding yourself with motivated individuals and like-minded individuals, it had such a catalyst effect. And I cannot stress enough how, the Chart Guys probably wouldn't be here right now if I wasn't living at this place with this entrepreneur. And in the first week, he was like, man, you guys are about to blow up and be big. And I was like, yeah, that'd be nice. But he saw it before we ever did. And it was really cool to see it, come into fruition. So from here, I'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about the community side of things and what we did with this space. And we held events and we had, gatherings and parties and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. And then my transition of how I balanced it all, starting the Chart Guys while doing this farming stuff and while having a house sometimes full of 9 or 50 or 100 people. So I appreciate you all watching. This was a longie, very long. Hope you have a great Sunday. We'll check back in tomorrow. Keep your eye on the hourly exponential moving averages. Check out my buddy Miles if you are interested in learning some guitar soloing techniques. Again, that link in the description. Thanks again. Do good things. Have a wonderful day.